There's one basic detail about Bryan Kohberger as the sole suspect in the Idaho 4 crimes that still doesn't make sense. Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Bryan Kohberger and the Idaho 4 crimes. Now, I was going to make a video about the Travis and Jamelyn Jutin crimes today, but last night I could not stop thinking about one simple detail when it comes to Bryan Kohberger. Now, tomorrow we are going to talk about the Jutin crimes. I have some updates and I have some information that I want to share with you all that we haven't talked about yet in previous videos. So we're definitely going to talk about that tomorrow. But today, I want to talk about Bryan Kohberger as the sole suspect of the Idaho 4 crimes. The detail that I was thinking about last night is simple. Has anyone ever come forward and said that they've seen Bryan Kohberger at the King Roadhouse or anywhere near any of these victims or any of the roommates for that matter? Something that I've spent a lot of time looking for in this case is a connection between Bryan Kohberger and these victims or this house or anyone who lived in the King Roadhouse. It's been almost 2 years since Bryan Kohberger was arrested. And since we've had his name, a lot of us have been looking for this connection. Now, I think about this a lot, and it always brings me back around to something very simple. And that is, did anyone see this guy? It seems as though there would be an eyewitness. And a lot of people have said that they believe that Bill Thompson and this prosecution have an eyewitness. But an eyewitness hasn't been presented yet. So it makes me wonder, out of all of the people who were around the King Roadhouse, out of all of the people who knew these roommates and knew these victims and partied at their house and been around these people, not one person has come forward to say that they saw Bryan Kohberger at the King Roadhouse ever, at any time, whether it be before the crimes occurred or as the crimes were occurring or after the crimes occurred. Nobody has come out and said that Bryan Kohberger knew any of these roommates. Not one person. I've just been waiting for Bill Thompson and the prosecution to come out and announce that they have an eyewitness, a credible witness who saw Bryan Kohberger at the King Roadhouse. I've been waiting for this big ta-da moment from Bill Thompson to present this proof to the defense and basically say, there's the proof. That's why we believe that Bryan Kohberger carried out these crimes. But he hasn't done that yet. Why? Is he waiting for the right time to present this evidence? I feel like Bill Thompson would have already presented this evidence or this eyewitness if he had it. I've believed from the beginning that there was a big possibility that someone saw this defendant at the crime scene and that Bill Thompson was waiting to present this information. But now I feel like it's been almost 2 years since Bryan Kohberger was arrested. And if Bill Thompson was going to present this information, it seems like he would have already done that. Now, if I'm an Idaho taxpayer and this prosecutor is just holding on to evidence and stringing this along, I'd be pretty upset because as it takes longer to get this evidence and to get the ball rolling on this trial, it's costing Latah County more time and money. Now it's going to cost Ada County time and money. Not only time and money, but resources, staff, clerks, representation, judges, everyone who's working on this case. Why string that out? I think that people would be pretty upset if Bill Thompson just came out one day and said, here it is, here's the information. I've had it all along. I was just waiting for the right time. I think people would think, why? Why did you wait so long? Why have you cost us so much time and money? And that's the reason why I don't believe that this prosecution has an eyewitness or any solid proof. I feel like that would have been presented already. Before you waste everyone's time and money and resources. Now this trial has moved to a different county. So now we have a new county, new judge, new clerks, new staff. So why would Bill Thompson wait and allow all of this to happen while holding on to the rabbit in the hat? Because in my opinion, there is no rabbit in the hat. In my opinion, Bill Thompson does not have an eyewitness, which is what I thought that they would have. I was waiting for this big surprise to happen where the prosecution would come out and say, we have somebody who saw Bryan Kohberger in this area. Now, I'm not saying it even has to be someone who saw Bryan Kohberger commit this crime. I'm talking about anyone who has seen Bryan Kohberger at the King Roadhouse at any point in time, before the crimes or after. Anyone who has seen Bryan Kohberger in this neighborhood or ever seen Bryan Kohberger with any of these victims or any of the roommates in the King Roadhouse, ever. Why is the prosecution playing all of the games? I mean, they had enough evidence and facts to arrest Bryan Kohberger, right? It seems like they would be able to use those same facts and evidence to present in court. But now they can't even connect this suspect to these crimes with solid evidence. The PCA is full of inconsistencies when it comes to time and location and the way that things were happening that night, what law enforcement believes happened. Now, a PCA is a very simple document. You believe that someone committed a crime, you get your facts and your evidence together, you put it all into a report, you submit that for review, and if it's found that you have enough facts and evidence, then you can take that person into custody. It's really very simple. Establish a connection between this individual and this crime. It seems like a pretty basic concept. But what happens if the information in the PCA, what happens if the facts that were stated in the PCA fall apart and it turns out that these aren't factual at all? Then what happens? Because now you've arrested a suspect on the facts and evidence that are included inside this PCA. So it creates a big problem. Law enforcement can't just be breaking people's houses down and arresting them, pulling them out of their house because they have a hunch. They need to have proof. They need to have facts and evidence in order for this to happen. Arresting someone without probable cause is a big deal. That's a violation of someone's rights. So this evidence is a big deal. And how they created this PCA, in my opinion, is crucial. Because right now, I feel like this PCA is basically just falling apart. Now, maybe Bill Thompson and the prosecution have the facts to back this up. But if they do, why haven't they presented it yet? It doesn't make sense that they would hold on to this damning evidence while they're costing the state of Idaho more time, more money, and more resources. I mean, this trial has already moved to Ada County. So they're moving it to another county, another judge, It would seem silly to think that Bill Thompson would be holding on to this evidence this entire time. And at the last minute is just going to come out and say, here it is, here it all is. I think people would be pretty upset. So I guess my question is, has anyone ever come forward and said that they saw Bryan Kohberger in, around, in the area of the King Roadhouse or any of these roommates? Ever? I mean, this whole town is not under gag order. It's been almost 2 years since we've had Bryan Kohberger's name, and I have not heard of one individual in this town who's come forward and said, I've seen that suspect with these roommates. I've seen Bryan Kohberger at the King Roadhouse. I've seen that guy driving around the neighborhood. I've never heard of one person. And if you have, please leave it in the comments because I would love to see it. But doesn't that seem strange that not one individual in this town has come forward and said, either on social networks or anywhere, that they have seen Bryan Kohberger in this area? There were people all over the King Road neighborhood at the time that law enforcement believes that these crimes began. There was even law enforcement half a block away at the band field. You know, we see in the body cam footage from the band field, there's people walking around. They're partying in this area. And that was well after 3 a.m. Well after 3 a.m. So I doubt they all just dispersed and went to bed at 4 a.m. when law enforcement believes that these crimes began. So it seems strange to me that not one individual who was around the house that night has come forward and said that they saw Bryan Kohberger. Now, is it possible that people did witness Bryan Kohberger and have come forward to law enforcement? Sure, it's possible. But in my opinion, I feel like we would have already heard about this. I don't feel like Bill Thompson would continue to drag this out if he had some sort of information that would connect this defendant to these crimes. In my opinion, Bryan Kohberger would stand out in this area. We have to remember, he's 8 years older than these students. And in my opinion, if somebody were to see him, I do believe that they would remember him. He has a very heavy brow. He has a very intense stare with his eyes. I feel like if somebody saw Bryan Kohberger, they would remember. But not one person has come forward. In my opinion, Dylan, seeing this intruder walk past her door with the bushy eyebrows. In my opinion, if she saw this intruder's eyebrows and it was Bryan Kohberger, she would be able to positively identify him, even if he was wearing a partial mask. Because if she saw his eyebrows, she still saw the top of his nose and his eyes. And in my opinion, Bryan Kohberger has a very distinct look that people would remember. And I believe that Dylan would be able to positively identify this intruder if she saw his eyebrows. That's just my opinion. So is there an eyewitness? Now, Judge, he's not on the case any longer, but we know that he got to see all of the DNA evidence. He looked at all the DNA evidence to review and decide what he was willing to show to the defense. So Judge has seen all of the DNA evidence. We also have to remember, he has a lot more information than we do because there was some closed door situations going on as well. So Judge knows a lot of the information. Yet he still decided to step away from this case. That seems strange to me because he's been there since the beginning of the hearings. This case could be the case of his career. He already has all of the information, or a lot of the information, but yet he's going to pass the baton to another judge. Why is that? Is it possibly because he knows that there's no evidence, there's no proof, nothing solid, and he already foresees a problem? That's a possibility, in my opinion. You know, it's going to be very interesting to see this next hearing that's coming up in a couple of days, because it's going to be interesting to see how this judge runs his courtroom. And it's going to be interesting to see how he moves this case along, because that's what this really needs. Judge was kind of this case was just kind of coasting along, which kind of was working out for the prosecution because they don't have their evidence. So I feel like in a lot of ways, the prosecution has been buying time, which, if you remember in the beginning, the prosecution was accusing the defense of trying to buy time, you know, because as I said, they were ready to go to trial tomorrow. So now I feel like it's the prosecution who's dragging their feet and trying to buy time. So it's going to be interesting to see how this new judge handles that situation. You know, Bill Thompson, I feel like Bill Thompson got away with a lot in Latah County. And I don't feel like that's going to happen in Ada County. Bill Thompson definitely pulled some fast ones on the defense. I mean, when he flagged the FBI to go question the defense's witness about their testimony, that kind of tells you that Bill has a tendency to be a little crafty. You know, he basically says in the hearing, I don't want to cross-examine this witness, and then goes and calls the FBI. He plays the good old grandpa role, but in my opinion, Bill is crafty. So I don't believe that this new judge is going to let him get away with that, the same way that John Judge did. So it's going to be interesting to see how this new judge moves things along, and it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to get the evidence out of the prosecution. Now, something else that would not surprise me is if Bill Thompson decides to pass the baton, if he steps away from this case, which in my opinion, I mean, wouldn't that be crazy if Latah County just twists this case up and confuses everything, makes a mess of it, and then goes and drops it in the lap of Ada County for them to figure out? Because in my opinion, that's what's happening right now. Latah County is dropping it in the lap of Ada County to figure out. So as I said, I've always believed that they were going to present an eyewitness, and that was what was going to pull a lot of this information together. But as this much time has gone by, and money and resources, I don't believe that Bill Thompson is just holding on to this ace in the hole. I simply just don't believe that he has it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it. And like I said, tomorrow we're going to be talking about the Travis and Jamalyn Jutin case. I have some information that you're going to want to hear. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. And if you like this video, hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. Again, I really do appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.